Good evening and hello. Usually I come in upbeat, full of excitement, joy, uh, but I can't do that this evening. This is a somber occasion. And so, for those of you listening via your podcast or YouTube, I'd like to welcome you to Elevated Vibes on Intellectual Radio, iHeart radio station. I hope that you can give us a call here in the studio. Our phone number is 708-223-8953, and we would love to have you join this discussion tonight. The reason for the somberness or the seriousness of this matter is because in the last week, we have witnessed decisions that are an inflection point in our place here in democracy in the United States. Today, we stand on the precipice of losing our democracy, a notion made starkly real by the recent decision of the Supreme Court in the matter of United States v. Donald J. Trump. This decision has sent shockwaves through our nation, raising profound questions about power, legitimacy, and the balance of our power and democratic principles. The court's ruling by a narrow 5-3 majority has fundamentally 6-3 majority has fundamentally altered the landscape of our legal and political systems. For those of you who don't know, Chief Judge, the Supreme Court has ruled that, in a basic summary, says that Donald Trump does enjoy certain immunities.
Right.
Certain, especially if they fall within the core presidential power. John Roberts, John Roberts wrote that the court does not lightly overturn established precedent, but the necessity to hold the Constitution compels us to make this decision. He further elaborated that the actions taken by the former president, while controversial, do not meet the threshold of criminal conduct as defined by our statutes. In one sweeping decision, the court has dismantled the protective barriers of our democracy, setting a dangerous precedent that threatens the very fabric of our republic. This decision is poised to join the ranks of some of the worst decisions in our country's history, standing alongside the infamous rulings such as Dred Scott, Plessy v. Ferguson, Citizens United. In her passionate dissent, Justice Sotomayor warned of the perilous path the court has taken. She wrote, "This decision undermines the very foundation of our democratic process. By excusing or exercising the actions that threaten the integrity of our electoral system, the court has opened the door to future abuses of power." Justice Sotomayor highlighted the erosions of checks and balances, emphasizing that no one is above the law, not even the president. Justice Brown also offered a compelling dissent, stating that the majority's decision today marks a dark day in American jurisprudence. The rule of law has been subverted to protect the individual who sought to undermine our democracy. She went on to stress that the consequences of this decision will reverberate for decisions, weakening the public's trust in our judicial system. As we stand on the eve of July 4th, let us remember the hopes of our founding fathers. They envisioned a nation where democracy would thrive, where the will of the people would govern, and where justice prevail. Today, those ideas stand under siege. Tyranny is knocking at the door. As we move into our discussion, I think it is time for those of us who are concerned, fearful of what this decision means, that we must start to employ the tactics of the right. I think that should start with us co-opting the word patriot. We are the patriots. We are the ones who although we disagree, believe that you should have the right to disagree. We are the patriots. They are the insurrectionists. And I must say this: those who support these decisions are insurrectionists. They are the redcoats. They are the grays. They are the stars and bars. You are either a patriot in this matter or insurrectionist. There can be no middle ground. By not taking a stand, you are taking a stand. The time for nobility, compromise, and half measures are over. For those of you who are familiar with the game, the Game of Starks books and series, we cannot be Ned Stark. We cannot. We cannot hold to the principles of nobility because they are not. When Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high, no. Sometimes you got to kick people where they are in the gutter. Because if we do not do that, then there is no game. And when you play the Game of Thrones, as she so wisely said, you play to win. This is a call to action. Democracy is a gift that we have taken for granted for far too long. Too many have died. Too many have been persecuted in the name of democracy. As the saying goes, we sleep well at night because rough men stand ready to do violence on our part. But today, we are those rough men and women, and we must begin our battle for the soul of our nation. We must channel the spirit of our forebears who stood steadfast against tyranny and oppression. They fought for a vision of America where freedom, justice, and equality were not mere words, but lived realities. This time next year, or in 2 years, should the king win, and your children or your grandchildren come to you, and they ask you the question, where were you when democracy failed? How will you answer that question? Now, let's begin our show. Unfortunately, our co-host, the gatekeeper, is not here, but the engineer, Mr. Tim Harris, is here, and I welcome him into this discussion. Mr. Harris, I'm referring to you as Mr. Harris tonight,
Okay.
because this is a serious matter, and I don't want to belay the point.
Mhm.
You know, we've talked, and we are not necessarily a political show. You know, we came together to say, you know, like, this is a place where ideas and we can elevate consciousness one mind at a time. But this time for duality and commitment to fairness is over. It's over. You know, if my child believes in unicorns and leprechauns, I don't have to give credence to that idea. Our press, those of us who operate in these forums and reach out to those who may not be as educated, we have a duty and we have a choice, and we have to do it. We cannot play any more games.
So I would like to say, why are we acting like we are surprised at what happened? Because for the last 30 years or so, the American people have been complaining that Congress doesn't do a thing.
It's not Congress. And I'll tell you why. Regardless of political parties that have occupied the White House, who have occupied the Senate, who have occupied the Congress, the Supreme Court has been the bulwark, the stabilizer of our democracy. We've looked to them to be above the fray, right? Mm-hmm. To look down. This is the Supreme Court that says separate but unequal, right? Who said that those of us who are homosexual have rights, you know, those of us who are involved in the criminal system have rights. That has been above political because they have expanded the human condition, they expanded human rights as it existed in the United States. They have been the ones who have pushed us towards our better angels, right? For the most part. For the most part. The Supreme Court has been that.
What
this case is and how it came to be to fruition lays to waste all of that. This was a political decision. This overturned precedent. You got to remember, this wasn't a novel case.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Nixon argued the same thing. Not only did Richard Nixon argue, the Supreme Court, I believe, took 25 days to come to a decision because they understood the gravity of it and they understood where they were in history. They have been the bulwarks to say, no, this is democracy. We have sought to expand rights. The Civil Rights Voting Act, they expanded it until this, under Roberts, came into existence. So that's what is so shocking about it. As someone who is in the law, and you're reading this, and you're saying, like, what? Like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, okay, I got the split. Absolute power, if it's within the presidential core. Cool, that makes sense. But I can't ask nobody what the president's motivation was. So how do I prove my case?
Right.
Well, that's why it's so shocking, Mr. Harris.
No, Evans. Evans. It's Evans.
Mr. Evans. I'm sorry, Mr. Evans. Sorry, Mr. Evans.
Okay. So Congress has to pass legislation for things to become laws, right? So if the Supreme Court rules on something, tell me if I'm correct or not. So say it rules on something like the voting rights, right? Everybody should have the right to vote. Now it's Congress's duty to make a law.
Well,
once they find out that it's constitutional, or it would be unconstitutional to withhold that vote.
So Congress makes the laws and the Supreme Court interprets them. The judicial system interprets them. So, for instance, with this 1964 Civil Rights Act, before the southern states, those that we consider red states, changed or made any type of things as it related to voting, they had to come to the Justice Department and get it approved. Okay? Under the Roberts Court, that was taken away. They no longer have to do and get approval because we know that southern states or those of the Confederacy had a history of doing things that curtail people of color's right to vote. Now, once that happened, look what happened. You got Georgia voting saying you can't give people in line food or water. You got other places closing down voting districts in primarily minority-owned districts. So Congress can look at that and say, we're going to create a law or do this. To your point, what you're saying is, has our Congress been asleep at the wheel? Yes and no. When Democrats had the opportunity to do it, they did nothing because Democrats are always worried about getting voted out in the next election, which is going to happen regardless. It always happens to the people that's in power, right? Because American people are fickle. Like, oh, the ball swung this way. So you might as well swing for the fences. I'll give you a perfect example. Remember, what's Turtleneck, the man in charge of the Senate? McConnell. Oh, when the justice died, it's too soon. Now, mind you, it's a whole year.
Right, Ruth
Yeah. It's too long, too close to the election. What happened when Scalia died? Oh, 4 months, we gonna do it. Right. So this playing it safe and doing that's on the Democrats, right? The Republicans don't care, right? Democrats are trying to govern and the time for Ned Stark is over. This is straight, hand of the king. We got to do what we need to do to get done what we need to get done.
But once the Supreme Court says that something is or isn't
Constitutional.
constitutional.
Yep.
Doesn't Congress have the responsibility to, like in the Voting Rights Act, right? Make that permanent? Can't they make an amendment?
They can amend it. They can
Right.
They can
So
do what they need. They can look at the court's decision
Mhm.
and create a law to, make it constitutional or
Right.
whatever.
That
But
you'll need 2/3 votes to take it out at that point, right?
the Congress can make the law however
Mhm.
they want to do it,
Okay.
right? It's up to the court. Now they say, hey, we looked at the Supreme Court's decision, so we're going to do this, or they can make a law and says that this is absolutely necessary and it's exempt from Constitution. They can do that.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? But they haven't.
They haven't.
And,
haven't.
And starting with the civil rights decision,
Mhm.
part of the apathy that I think people of color feel, particularly African Americans, was that you remember early on in Biden's presidency was the Civil Rights Act. We wanted the Civil Rights Act. John Lewis was pushing for it, and the two nincompoops in Senate, wouldn't go for it and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And so we kind of abandoned it. We wanted police reformation, a national legislation to say certain police standards and things like that. That got abandoned, right? So when you're looking around, you say, well, what have you done for us? Well, I get it. You know what I'm saying? But we got to put all of that behind us.
We do?
We got it. Look,
I don't know.
I
don't know about that.
What do you think is going to happen? What do you think you're going to get if the king gets in? And I'm referring to him as because that is in essence what they've done. They've anointed him king, and they are the ones who get to say when the king is and out of bounds.
So I have no doubt that the Democrats right now are trying to run their brains racket on their contingency plan to what they will do if Trump gets into office, right? They can play with the money. That's one thing.
If we control Congress,
right?
You're assuming you got to remember in the Senate, there's more Democratic Senate seats up than there are Republican seats. So not only do we have to hold on to what we got, we also got to take back the House. Now the House, I think they're up 4 votes. I can't remember, but so we got to take back the House and we got to take back the Senate. All right, so that's one. We got to hold on to the White House, right? Because they have literally told you what they're going to do. We talked about it last week, Project 2025. And the man said, yeah, for the first day, I'm going after my political enemies. Your boy Bannon, who just reported to jail, guess what? Immunity. Guess who's going to be back up in there with them, right? We have to think about this long term. I get it. I'm as hot as you are because they have dropped the ball for too long. And I don't want to make this a political show, a racial show. It has been African Americans who have saved democracy time and time again. All right. From the moment of the rebellion, when Crispus Attucks died, to the 54 Massachusetts, because the North was running out of people. You think they just let the black soldiers fight because, well, we want to be egalitarian? No. They were running out of soldiers, right? They had to let the black people fight. Plus, the black people knew the land, right? To last year, when black women came out for Biden, only followed by black men, right? So now again, and I'm not trying to make this racial, but the African American turnout has to be incredible. It has to be. We're being called to again save democracy. From the moment we were brought to this nation, we are the ones who have held America accountable to its higher principles. Because if you're saying that this is a land of the free, the brave, and every man is equal, how do you treat your African Americans? And so without that, yeah, we're going to fall to tyranny.
I don't want to put that much pressure on African Americans to do their duty.
But we've always done our duty. We've always done it. Even when our nation has deprived us of our rights. Why do you think the soldiers signed up to go to World War I? 1915? I don't know exactly what's going on, but I guarantee you, it wasn't too happy for us.
Right. But
1941, when the Japanese dropped the bombs on Pearl Harbor, my dad and mom had been alive 15 and 25 years respectively. Jim Crow was well, but yet African Americans heeded the call.
Well, I know that the circumstances are pretty dire this time around, but it's getting more and more dire every election season, right? When Barack Obama was a candidate, it was a dire situation. When Trump went against Hillary Clinton, it was a dire situation. When Biden, the first time he went against Donald Trump, it was a dire situation.
Oh, it was dire.
Yeah, each time it's getting worse and worse, right? Every time it's a dire situation.
And I get what you're saying. I get it. How many times can Chicken Little say the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling?
Right.
In this case, my friend, no. The tornado sirens are sounding. The funnel cloud is coming. We know their playbook. We know. We talked about this last week. You right? And the only thing that saved us the last time was their incompetence. The only thing that any successful coup that has in common with the other coups is that there was a failed coup before. You don't think they learned their lessons? You don't think they know now, oh, we got to make all of these political appointments?
Well, I'm sure they have learned. I'm sure they have learned.
And that's what makes it even more scary. They're wiser and smarter now, right? And the only thing probably what, I hate to say this, was we all got caught up with COVID. You know? So our attention turned inward because now we're all fighting for our lives. But look what happened. That man allowed more Americans to die during COVID than that died during the Civil War. 500,000 Americans. 500,000 Americans died. And you can say, oh, it was a fluke, whatever. You know, they went against, think about this. What happened is Fauci was a political appointment. And Trump says, I don't want my people wearing masks. I don't, regardless of where you stand, whether you believe it or not, the inoculation or not, right? There are people we have in this world who are more skilled and knowledgeable about certain things than I am because I haven't had a chance to study. We call them experts, right? They call them elites, right? Oh, this is the elite. But let me ask you this. You're about to have a heart surgery, open heart surgery, right? Do you want the elite or do you want the one who graduated 365th in his class? Right? So there are times when we rely on people who have more knowledge than us. I can't go to Google and read the scientific ads or read the other stuff and understand it. I have to rely on people's knowledge, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? If you about to have eye surgery and you about to have LASIK, do you want the guy who said, oh yeah, I studied it off of YouTube, I just hit these buttons, or do you want the ophthalmologist? Right? So they've co-opted this word elite, right? Because it's bad. You know, it's those people who stick their noses down on us. They ain't common folks, right? There is no delight in being ignorant, right? We have people who have spent time, their resources, and education becoming knowledgeable on certain subjects, right? I don't want the political appointment to be Dr. Fauci because they're going to say whatever King Trump says. They're going to say whatever they need to do to maintain their job. That's what makes this decision so mind-blowing.
So, I mean, apparently we're caring about this situation more than the average American person is.
And that's the problem.
Right? So
that's the problem.
Well, we can talk till we blue in the face.
No,
right?
I definitely believe that people like you and I, common folks, and that's the problem. I get it. You know, if you're MSNBC, Fox, but in our conversations,
Now,
like how old is I don't know, your offspring? How old is your offspring?
21,
Okay.
22.
You make sure she's registered.
Yeah. Both of them registered to vote.
Yeah. So and it's little things like that, and talking to them and saying, I need you to understand. Because me and you, when you're listening to Rachel Maddow, Chris Matthews, or you know, the ABC News, sometimes it can feel like they are talking down, right? That's not their intent. I mean, you know, and I have a problem with the press trying to do this balanced and fair approach. No, this not the time for that. There's not the time for that. If we want to talk about economic policies and whether or not subsidies help people or make people less inclined to work, cool. That's fair and balanced. This man has told you, yes, from day one, I want to be a despot. His words, not mine. So we can't afford. So
a lot of people going
educated.
A lot of people going along with that, because you know what? The news not saying anything about this maybe, but why we have these problems, why the Supreme Court ruled in that way, they're not saying anything about that. How about why they have a monopoly on their power? They're not saying anything that's helpful. We know everything that they're trying to say.
But I'm saying we all, for those of us who know, we have a responsibility to penetrate that bubble. We have to. Little shows like this, the podcasters who come on that, you know, have a niche audience. We all need to be talking about this, right? We need to treat this as a national crisis. The problem is that we as Americans have been so divided in our tribes for so long that we done forgot how to talk to each other, right? It always takes some type of national crisis. The most recent one, because not even COVID brought us together. Not even COVID brought us together. And that killed 500,000 Americans. The last national crisis that I can think of that brought Americans together was probably 9/11, maybe 9/11, because that was an attack on us. But before that, I would say it would have to be the Japanese bombing war, Pearl Harbor. That shocked the national conscience. My fear is that this gets in and people are like, well, it doesn't have anything to do with me. It doesn't affect. By then, the fox is in the hen house, right? It's too late. This needs to shock the national conscience. This is as important as Brown v. versus Board of Education. This is up there with that. Like this decision, if that represented the best and brightest of the court, Brown v. Board, where it said, you know, separate but unequal is not constitutional, you know, then this is the opposite of it. And it needs to shock the consciousness. And because we are so short-term wired, you know, we covered it on Monday. There was a little bit about it Tuesday. Today, I watched the news, nothing. This decision has to reverberate because now we're in panic mode, right? And we'll get to it.
I mean, okay, so even the Democrats that are in office right now, some of them are making, I guess, a committee or something to try to, but their concern about this is not equal to the problem, right? It never has been.
What do you mean? Like, I mean, AOC is looking to impeach. It don't go nowhere, but to impeach some of the justices, which that should be a bigger issue because you got two justices talking about that they receive all of these funds from right-wing groups, and you're trying to tell me that doesn't influence your decision? One of your justices.
How can Congress talk about them, the Supreme Court, when Congress does the same thing they do? That's why they can't police each other.
But here's the thing: Democrats the Justice Department is going after other Democrats. You got Bob Clifford, who's been prosecuted because he had gold bars in his suit pockets, there's another Democrat that's being prosecuted.
Mm-hmm.
And when they are prosecuted, not only do Democrats stand up and say, you should no longer be part of our party, but if you did what you did, then you should be prosecuted.
Well, that's only when you get caught getting bribed the wrong way. But if you get bribed the right way, it's no way to stop you.
But what I'm saying, Tim, is we can't. I understand what you're saying. What I'm trying to get to you is tearing down the system now and attacking the system and saying, oh, this plan is what about youism? What about youism? Is we can deal with that on Thursday after election day, right? That ain't the time right now. This ain't it. Like, I get what you're saying. And what you're saying is legitimate. And I'm not trying to say, but this ain't the argument. You see, and the only way I could put this is, my friend, there's a hole in the ship. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You talking about how much food we got in reserve. All right. Is that important? Absolutely.
Okay.
But there's a hole in this ship, and the ship is coming. The water is coming in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can't seal off the doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got to seal off the doors because there's a hole in this ship.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to say that's what's more important now. Like, all your issues are legitimate. Yes. Do we need congressional reform to talk about who can and can't take bribes? Yep. Should we have term limits? Absolutely. Should there be some type of ethics committee that looks at congressional violation, which there is, but we don't hear about it. You know what I'm saying? And maybe we should hear more. Absolutely. But that all goes out the window if Agent Orange, the king gets in. This court has literally said that it is within the core power for him to do what he wants to do. And it doesn't have to be the SEAL Team 6, all right? I know enough of West Wing. Military can't operate on U.S. soil, posse comitatus, allegedly, if West Wing was true. I mean, I love West Wing, right? Mm-hmm. Posse comitatus says the military can't do that. But guess who else is also under the president? The FBI.
Yeah.
The FBI.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not necessarily that they got to arrest you. It's the threat of prosecution that gets you. Mm-hmm. The threat of prosecution. Guess who else? I'll tell you who really nobody really wants to get with. Guess who else falls under the presidential core power?
Who's that?
The I, the R, and the S.
Yeah, they do.
All they got to do is say, we're going to audit you 10 years, every year. Right?
Yeah.
It is not the threat of incarceration. It is the threat of bankruptcy. He can come after me for being on this show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I honor his freedom of speech. Hey, go get his, whatever taxes. Mm-hmm. It's just, and here's the thing. It's not even the IRS coming after me, right? Mm-hmm. It's the fact that I'm going to have to go hire an attorney to try to defend me against the I, the R, and the S.
Yeah.
As skilled as I am that's not my wheelhouse in the law, right? Mm-hmm. That is someone else's wheelhouse, right? Perfect example. I'll give it to you. Your girl, Stormy Daniels, was on Rachel Maddow last night, right? She's not even under prosecution. You know what happened to her? Her attorney brought a suit for defamation, got thrown out. There's some quirk in the law that if you bring this suit and it's thrown out, they get to come after you for attorney's fees, right? Now, it's not even the attorney's fees that's got her. It's the fact that he has weaponized his crazies, the MAGAs, that make your life a living hell. Yeah. Right? They come after your workplace. They come after your home. They have put her home on there. The one thing that you and I enjoy as American citizens, and we all think we want it, is anonymity. But when you get to fame and, people know who you are and what you've done, the court is making this woman, they asked a question, something about her 13-year-old daughter. Stormy refused to answer the question. Mm-hmm. The court is threatening to hold her in contempt because she will not reveal the identity, the name, and the address of her 13-year-old daughter. This is the same woman who has received death threats because she was compelled to testify. She didn't stand up and say, oh, he did. She was compelled to testify. But you gotta, the court has said, no, you gotta turn over your daughter's information. That's the threat.
So I mean, okay. So I see all of these threats that you are hypothesizing that will come this way if President Trump gets elected, right? But I think you're overstating the amount of fight that Congress has in them. It might be a level of undemocratic government that Congress will accept. You know what I mean?
So, I get you. What you're saying, though, is but that requires legislation. What I'm saying is that this decision by this court is within the core president, for instance, core presidential powers, the power to appoint ambassadors, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if one of the Walmart founders wants to be an ambassador to Ukraine, right? And he's going to pay Trump, whatever Trump wants. And he gets to be appointed the ambassador to Ukraine, and he happens to be against Ukraine. What's your man name? Elon Musk. Elon Musk says, hey, I don't have no political skills, nothing. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Ukraine is using my satellite systems to communicate. I want to be an ambassador to Ukraine. Don't you think that's undue influence? Don't you think this is the same man who was investigated in his first impeachment that we done completely forgotten about for having relations with Russia? This is the same man who went and had a meeting with the Russian ambassador with no one else in the room. And I don't know about you, but I grew up watching Rocky IV. Russia was our enemy. But he's entertaining it.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the things that you raised, Mr. Evans, are issues. I'm not denying that. What I'm telling you is this is a call to arms. All right? This is a call to arms. And we can't be sitting here fighting and arguing about the whataboutism and what they did and all of that. Cool. There will be a day of reckoning.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't today. What is today, and I like to turn to, is your grandfather. We all saw the debate.
Mm-hmm.
We all saw it. And the best way I can characterize that is it's a choice between hell no and oh no. All right? What is your impressions? What did you think?
Well, I couldn't believe that Biden didn't take some kind of medication before he got on the stand for the first thing. He should have took something, because Donald Trump definitely did. And I know that before the debate, Donald Trump and his people were constantly talking about, how Biden had to take these stimulants and all of this stuff just to function correctly. But you know how they usually project when they say those kind of things, right? What they project that you're going to do, that's exactly what they're going to do. So they definitely should have put Biden on something that made him look more acceptable. Yeah.
No. I here's the issue. We know a couple of things I want to point out. President Biden does have a speech problem, right? Mm-hmm. He does, he overcame it, which again is a feat to how great America is, that a man who had a stuttering problem, this working class man, this everyday Joe, rose to the highest political office, right? He has been a dedicated and faithful servant. His whole thing in the 90s, with, lock them up, the black people up and all of that stuff. But he's a patriot, who has dedicated his life, and he deserves our respect and admiration. 1. 2, the presidency ages you, right? Remember how smooth and good looking Barack was when he came in, and we were all like, oh yeah. And then I remember looking at him in the second debate when, he's going to get Mitt Romney, and you're just like, whoa, like what happened?
Right,
It ages you.
Yeah.
I mean, the presidency is a hard job. It ages you. It ages you. So that's 2. 3. Regardless of how you feel about this, regardless, we're not talking about 2024, right? When you look at this man, I want you to think about 2026 and 2027. Do you believe that he has the stamina and the wherewithal to get to that? You know, understand what I'm saying?
I definitely don't. I definitely don't think that he has it.
And there's nothing wrong with questioning this. When democracy is on the table and you hoping that the 7 or the 11 don't come up, and you got all your chips out there, we have the right to question it.
And they give you some insight to how the Democrats think in the Democratic Party, because the Republicans are usually the ones who think of top down, right?
Right.
And Democrats are supposed to be thinking of grassroots up, right?
We are at the point where Democrats have to look at country over party, right? It's different than the Republicans, right? We know the Republicans know this man wants to subvert democracy, right? If we want to preserve democracy, we're going to have an honest decision about gerontocracy in this country. We've talked about that on this show. You know, I'm looking at Claiborne in South Carolina, Pelosi, our man in charge of the Democrats in the Senate,
Schumer.
Yeah. This is what happens when you hold on to power too long, right? Yeah. This is what happens, and this is coming back to. So we need to have a country, because are we doing enough to prepare the next generation? Right?
And we are not. The Democrats are not preparing the next generation to take the lead.
So do we hold on? I'd like to hear your opinion on this. Do we hold on to Biden out of a sense of loyalty because that's what we got? Or what do we do? What do you think?
Well, I think that I would think that Biden should continue running as the candidate if he proves that he's worthy of that position. So these new powers.
When is the line in the sand? Knowing that the convention is next month? No, this month. I'm thinking this is still June. The convention is this month. So 2 weeks.
So the Supreme Court just gave him a brand new list of powers he can use.
And that's funny, because no one is talking about Biden abusing the power.
Right.
No, ain't no one talking. Because right now, I'd be like, yo, really?
Yeah.
Hold on.
I see a couple of
IRS.
To the country.
Go over there and do this.
I think I see a whole bunch
FBI, y'all need to go ahead and do this.
Yeah.
We gonna do this. I mean, we got what? This is July, September, October, and November. We got 3 months to run the tape.
Exactly. And the Democrats act like the Republicans are not going to do that to them as soon as they get in the office.
We're doing the Ned Stark.
Right.
We're doing the Ned Stark.
I would start right away. If you all want to do this, we should do this. And they should go into the Supreme Court. They should go into Robert's business. They should go into Clarence Thomas' business. They should go into everybody's business right away.
I agree. We're going to publicize Clarence Thomas taxes. And that's the problem.
Because they're going to look all confused when the Republicans try to do it to them if they get the chance.
Brilliant. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
He should have came on TV and started, instead of talking about this as being an abuse of power, he should have said that day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Here we go.
So today, the IRS has announced it's beginning its search into Fort Largo and things like that. We've started to look at Ivanka Trump. We're looking at Eric Trump. We don't think
this is all national security.
Right. We don't think the young one got anything on him because he ain't too smart to file his taxes.
Yeah.
You know, we going after the man who just went to jail. I can't even think of his name. We're gonna look at them.
Oh yeah.
You know, we gonna and it's within my core power to do so.
Thank you, Supreme Court.
Thank you, Supreme Court. You know, I'm putting together SEAL Team 6 to keep a close eye and provide security protection for Donald Trump. This is merely a protective measure to ensure that our foreign enemies and domestic cannot touch Mr. Trump. I want the best of the best.
Hey, Judge Roberts, remember it was 9 of you all?
Right.
Remember it was 9?
Right.
Now it's about 15 of Supreme Court. Now it's 15 of y'all.
I think should the Democrats
Yeah.
take the
Why
House
not?
and the Senate, that's what Trump, whoever is doing, they should run and say, yes, we stacking the court.
Yep.
We're going to do it. We have to run against the Supreme Court.
They can't do it now?
No.
They can't do it now?
No, because you couldn't do it now because, well, I think they would, stall it in the Senate.
Mhm.
And when Biden came aboard, he was like, "I'm not going to stack it." And again, we're doing that Ned Stark thing. We're doing that Ned Stark.
Oh, we got to stack it.
We got to stack it. Yeah,
we got to stack it.
We got to stack it. You got to add. It's 9 of them. We're gonna add 5 more justices.
Now, if he came out strong like that, I bet he'd get a good voter turnout.
Well, I bet he get to the top of the show. But go ahead.
Yeah. I bet that if he came out strong like that, I bet the voter turnout would be better than what he expected.
Well, that's the problem too. They haven't rolled him out since that debacle.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so in the absence of that, in the vacuum of that, people are like, man, what is wrong with him? Mm. Like, the first time we're going to hear from him nationally, I think is on Friday with George Stephanopoulos.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So we need to have a kumbaya come to Jesus meeting. We either going to rally behind or we got to start getting ready.
Right.
The natural selection, of course, is Kamala. And people have a problem with her. But I did hear something today that the Kamala that was on the campaign trail and that people really didn't like is not the Kamala that is now. That she's a lot more polished. She's a lot more, I guess, sociable, approachable, those things. And so I think we need to have a serious conversation about it. And I'm Friday, if he announces that, I will not seek the presidency, and we get Kamala up there and running, and we got to be prepared to hit the ground and run it. And I mean, like, Obama got to come out, Michelle Obama got to come out, Whitmore, the governors, like we got to do it, and we got to get the enthusiasm going. Like, we got to pretend like this is 2008 all over again. Mm-hmm. She has to run on abortion, like in all of these states, they're gonna, if he wins with this court, he's going to outlaw abortion.
Yeah. He's going to get 2 more picks.
2 more picks, at least.
At least 2 more picks if he gets reelected.
If whoever that next person is that's on the Democratic side, he got to say, yo, I found this 30-year-old district court judge who is more liberal than me, and that's what I'm gonna put on the court. Bet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But in the meantime, to go back to your point, I agree. President Biden, SEAL Team 6 needs to be providing selective services for all of Trump and his family.
Mm-hmm.
The IRS needs to be talking to, since they don't want to issue subpoenas to, Congress doesn't want to issue subpoenas to have Roberts come in and explain and Clarence Thomas. Let the IRS do it. Better yet, have the Department of Education, since they're about to get rid of that. Hey, the loan people always seem to find me, no matter how many times I change my phone number.
Right.
Good evening, Mr. Bankhead. This is Navian calling, and we've had some difficulty contacting you. No, it wasn't difficulty. I was trying to avoid you, but you seem to find me some kind of way. So why don't we let the Department of Education figure out where, Clarence Thomas is getting all of this money from,
right?
As we close the show, let us remember that democracy was never free. It requires vigilance, courage, and a willingness to fight for what is right. We must heed the lessons from history, from Concord to January 6th. The string of democracy runs through the fabric of our nation. As I said at the top of the show, there is a saying that we sleep well at night because rough men do ready to do violence on our behalf. Today, I ask the question, are you those guardians of democracy? In closing, I'll remind you of the story of the 3 little pigs. The first house was made of straw. That was us in the beginning. The second house was made of sticks. That was our country in the middle. Our house is now made of bricks. And it's up to us to decide if we're going to let the big bad wolf in. This is Elevated Vibes. We pray that you have a happy and safe July 4th. Any last words?
Peace. Have a good 4th of July.
Peace.